I wanted to do a tutorial on the main switch to show how it's constructed, how to disassemble it and clean it. As I mentioned in one of the other videos, I had trouble with mine. It left me high and dry out in the middle of nowhere. The contacts get dirty and corroded, and once that starts occurring, then the switch starts to arc and it burns the contacts, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, the engine starts to run really rough and dies. Then nothing works because you're not getting any power through the switch itself. And I imagine there's all sorts of other various stages of failure that the thing can present. But it's good to know that you can jumper it, as I showed you in one of the other videos, to get you home. And it's also good to know that it can be disassembled and you can try to clean it. It has a plastic backing plate. You have to be careful with the switch, it's easy to break. I broke one. So you just got to be careful and have some idea what you're getting into. These two screws hold it all together. You take the screws out, but you keep everything pinched together with your thumb because it's spring-loaded, and if you let it go, all the guts can come flying out. So you remove the two small screws so that you can get the plastic backing plate off. It's pretty obvious how the plastic backing plate is oriented because it has an opening for the wires to pass through. Once you get the two screws out, I don't know if you guys can see this any good, but if you start to release it, the backing starts to spring away. The plastic backing pushes off of the switch. And when you go to put it back together, if you can't close this all the way up with your fingers, don't put the screws in and tighten them down, because you'll do what I did, you'll break it. The contact plate is made out of bakelite, and it's really brittle and fractures easily. So you carefully release the pressure, and then you lift the plastic back plate off. Then you have your contact plate right here. Note your orientation. This tab's here like this, and the wires are going off to my right, sort of about the 4 o'clock position. It might be hard to see, but there's an an alignment tab right there. And there's a rectangular slot in the bakelite. And that's intended to make sure that you don't put it back together wrong. Okay, it only aligns one way. So you carefully lift the contact plate out of there. And there's your contacts. You can see they have some marks on them, but this particular plate, they're in pretty good shape. And here's your wipers in here. There are two wipers, here and here. Note the orientation of this wiper bar. Sitting kitty corner across here like this. There's a detent plate in behind it. It has spring-loaded detents that engage with the detents on the plate for the two positions that the switch can be put in. This wiper bar can lift out of here, get a hold of it and just tug on it, and you can see that it has a rectangular shaft that the wiper bar engages with. So when you put it back together, you want this in the same orientation that it was when you took it apart. Okay? You don't want it out of phase. So once you get this out, you can clean up these wiper plates. This can move around, so you want to be careful with that, not to get it out of phase with this piece, the wiper plate. And then you can just use Scotch-Brite to clean up these contacts. This thing's captured with little tabs that keep them from flying out, but sometimes the tabs don't engage real good, and the springs that are in here can push the contact out and it'll fly across a room or whatnot. You just take Scotch-Brite and buff this up, get it cleaned off, both sides. I suspect if you got a bad switch, it's going to take a lot more to clean it up than the effort I'm putting in here. For this part of the assembly, I don't want to spray contact cleaner and wash off the grease that's on the detent plate. So later on I'm going to clean that up with a paper towel that's been saturated with contact cleaner. The contact plate, same type of deal. Use a Scotch-Brite pad, scrub it off, get it all nice and shiny. You're not, if it's pitted, you're not going to be able to remove the pitting more than likely. If it's shallow pitting, you might be able to sand this down on a glass plate with some abrasive paper like 320 or 220. But the Scotch-Brite pad isn't going to remove pitting, but it will clean the corrosion off and give you nice clean contacts. Okay? And then once that's all cleaned up, just use some electronic contact cleaner. I'm going to take this out of your view, spray it off with the contact cleaner to get any grit off of it. And for these particular wipers, I just take a paper towel, spray it with some contact cleaner, and then wipe these by hand. Get them nice and clean. That way I don't wash all the grease off of the detent plate. Hopefully you guys can see what I've done here. So now it looks pretty clean. This looks good. This looks good. Hopefully you can see that it looks nice and clean. Time to put it back together in the correct orientation. Same deal, hold this like this, drop this in so that it's kitty corner, get it to engage the square shaft, rectangular shaft. You've got this orientation tab right there. You want that to line up with the orientation rectangular slot right there in this contact plate. You should be able to feel the spring action there. Once you drop that plate over there, this plastic back gets installed. And as I mentioned earlier, you don't want to put the screws in until this thing is on its fit and you know that it's all the way home. You don't want to be sticking the screws in there and trying to tighten it up with the little plate not all the way home. The gap should be closed. See, you can see I have an opening right here, so I'm not ready for a screw yet. Something isn't right. There we go. Okay. You run the screws in, but don't tighten them yet. Run back through here and look. Make sure that it's engaged on the fit and everything can go all the way home so that you don't fracture the little Bakelite contact plate. Now it's ready to reinstall. Okay?